Hello, good morning. Thanks for joining today's webinar, Confluence Fundamentals Primer, a compressed version of Precipio Consulting's Confluence Fundamentals training. We're recording the session and we'll submit a link to the recording in a few days. Please note our next webinar is Jira for Resource and Portfolio Management. We're planning that for June 5th, 11 a.m. Central. Also, as we go through the webinar today, please be sure to submit your questions using the question capability in the GoToMeeting webinar utility. We'll queue up the questions and cover them towards the end of the webinar. So I'd like to start off also with an introduction. On the phone and presenting today, we've got Christopher Pepe. He's a partner here at Precipio Consulting and heads up our Atlassian practice. Also is myself, Christian Lane, partner at Precipio Consulting. So as Atlassian experts, we do a whole lot of things for our customers. We've been Atlassian experts for about 5 years now. 95% of our implementations are Atlassian related. Our clients range from 20-person companies to Fortune 20 type companies across a wide variety and range of industries. Everything from technology to automotive, electric utilities and insurance, banking and finance, medical and pharmaceuticals. We're pretty much across a whole ton of industries. That's just a handful there. So as Atlassian experts, we help customers implement solutions, whether they're traditional business process management, IT service management based on ITIL, or software development lifecycle methodologies. More and more, we're helping customers transition from waterfall software development methodologies to agile. We support our customers in all facets of the Atlassian product suite, with solutions in architecting implementations, licensing, installs and upgrades and maintenance, as well as hosting and managed services. And then, of course, we do a lot of training, and we do a lot of plugin development as well.
Confluence is the other half of the core of the Atlassian suite. Jira really is the main flagship, and it is probably, I don't know, 60% where Confluence is 40% kind of thing. But Confluence is very much at the core of the platform. A lot of different companies use it. It works really well in combination with other Atlassian products, as well as just a standalone product, kind of just depending on what you want to do with it and how tightly you're looking to integrate with all of your other applications. At its core, it's a wiki. It's really a lot more than a wiki, but it'd be most comparable to the other kind of wiki platforms that are out there. In a lot of ways, you might compare it a little bit more to SharePoint as opposed to like MediaWiki or something like that. The main difference there is that Confluence is a kind of free-form, web-centric platform that allows you to create rich content quickly and easily and share it with each other and view it directly within the platform, as opposed to SharePoint, which is much more document-centric. You create a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, and you put them up into libraries. And maybe you create lists and you have your web parts that you put other stuff into. But in general, you're kind of checking files out, working on them, checking them back in. Confluence is doing all of the version controlling and everything like that on all of your pages as well. It's just allowing people to collaborate at the same time on the same pages. Over the last couple iterations, Atlassian's put a lot of effort into building in a lot more kind of social capability into the platform as well. So it's becoming quicker and easier to collaborate with people, to get updates from people. And we'll try to walk through as many of those features as we can in the time that we have allotted to us today. What you're looking at right now is the main Confluence dashboard, and this is almost the shiniest, newest version of Confluence. As Atlassian loves to do, the second we install the newest thing, they immediately release another version. So we're one minor revision behind in this particular instance, but this should have everything that's in kind of the newest Confluence 5 series. I actually wanted to log in so that we could see the pop-up screen, so let's do that. First time you log into a new version of Confluence, it's going to pop up a what's new in this version of Confluence. The rich text editor is almost becoming old news at this point. It was in Confluence 4.0 that they first got rid of the rich text or wiki markup kind of workflow and changed it just to the rich text editor. You can still use wiki markup, and we'll look at that as well. But everything happens in this kind of brand new shiny editor. In Confluence 5, they have added a number of new features and made it a richer kind of editing experience. And a lot of what we'll really focus on today is the editing experience, because as a kind of power user, most of the functionality that you're going to get the most mileage out of it is going to be knowing how to use that editor to create the best documentation that you can. It's an entirely new design. This is actually part of a greater effort within Atlassian to make all the products look and feel the same. So Jira 6 will actually end up looking just like this as well. It'll have that same kind of ribbon across the top where you see Confluence there. It'll be Jira, and you can link to all of your other Atlassian applications. And this kind of takes us a step closer to that Jira Studio look that everybody liked, where you had all of your different applications showed up kind of as different tabs, and you didn't really feel like you were changing contexts when you changed between applications. So this kind of new unified design will start to bring more cohesiveness to the whole ecosystem as well. And you'll see that in their external products like Bitbucket as well. In fact, if you watch Bitbucket, you'll always see what kind of the new UI will look like within the downloadable apps themselves. And then kind of one of the newer, bigger things that is generating a lot of excitement is Blueprints. Blueprints, in a lot of ways, operates like templates. It's kind of a super version of templates. So we'll take a look at that as well, and we'll run through an example of using one of the blueprints that ships with Confluence 5 to create a nicely formatted page. So again, we're looking at our dashboard right now. This is kind of automatically generated for you. The big thing is really your activity stream. So here we have popular updates, all updates, who's doing what in the system. You also have any of your favorites, a few favorite spaces. All those things will show up there, and then your network. So as a user within Confluence, you can go in and you can follow other users. That's one of those social features. So I'm logged in right now as demo user, and that's what we'll do everything as today. So I could go into Christopher Pepe's profile, and I can start following him. So now anytime he makes any updates that I have permission to see, they're going to show up in my timeline. They'll show up in my network as well. And that makes it easier to stay on top of what sort of content other people are creating. Excuse me. Now we have team calendars installed, which is an add-on for Confluence, and this allows you to integrate your Jira tickets, personal calendars, public calendars like holidays, things like that, into Confluence. So one of the places it shows up is right here. As this user, I don't have any calendars, and we don't have any that will do anything interesting enough for today, so we're not really going to look at that. But team calendars is a really nice thing to have within Confluence, and you can see when tickets are due, and it kind of helps keep your team on track. And then down here we have all the spaces that we have access to. So again, I only have access to this one demo space as this user. All the different pages that I have favorited, and then again my network here. Now the way favoriting works, it's the same way as it works in Jira. You'll have a little star in places, and by clicking on that star, you make it a favorite. Now this demo space is one of my favorite spaces. You do the same thing with pages. When I go over to pages, I can favorite them, and then they'll show up in my pages list here. And that just makes it a little easier to get to content that you use frequently. All right, so actually I want to mention a couple other things about the activity stream and kind of the other kind of top level things before we get into creating content. So here if we look at popular stuff, there's some heuristic built in Confluence that determines whether or not something's popular, and it's based on the amount of activity and favorites and all those other things that pages are getting. So it's going to show you these kind of top level pages that are the most popular. All updates is going to show you your whole activity stream. This is everything that's happening in Confluence that you have access to. So you can see who the user is, what pages they are modifying, and when they're modifying them. And that just gives you an idea of what's actually going on in the environment. So we also have this new thing that's been around for a little while now, but maybe Confluence 4.3 or something like that. It's called the Workbox, and this contains your notifications and your task lists. A really cool new thing that's just been put in is it's actually taking information out of Jira and putting that into your notifications as well. So here you can see a ticket in Jira that demo user is assigned to Christopher Pepe commented on, and because of that, that information automatically popped up in Confluence. So we have this nice connection between Confluence and Jira. So the things that are happening in Jira, I'm still aware of them within Confluence. Similarly, If I get mentioned on a page or a page is modified, things like that, that'll also show up in my notifications. So here's a page that Christopher Pepe commented on. The other piece of it is your task list. Now these can be tasks that you add yourself. It's not really a task, but it's what I'm doing. So I can add these tasks. I can come in here and tick them off when I'm done. They can also be added for you on pages, and this right here actually came out of a page. It's actually the meeting notes page that we're going to take a look at. So I was assigned a task by someone that showed up in my personal task list. And every time I come in my work box, I see this little one right here that tells me that I have a pending task that I need to do. So this little notification center is a really nice new addition that's made its way into Confluence relatively recently. Across our top, oh, look at that, it's already got it in here. Again, because I have Jira connected to Confluence over application links, I've already got a link directly to it here. So here is Confluence, here's Jira, and you can add other things in here too. So if you use SharePoint or if you have a time tracking system you use, you can add links to all of those systems into this little menu to make it easier for people to change from application to application. And then obviously within the Atlassian suite, as long as you have all the same links in all of those, then the ribbon will look the same and your context shifts between applications won't feel like context shifts. It'll just look like you're kind of clicking over to a different page in the same application. We have this spaces page, which allows you to navigate through your spaces. When you only have one space, it's pretty easy to figure out where you're going and to get around. But if you have personal spaces, they'll all show up here. All of your favorited ones, ones that have been archived. So this is kind of your space navigator that lets you get around all the different spaces. And I guess I should take a step back and describe what a space is. Kind of like a Jira project, a space is an organizational unit where we're sticking all of our like documentation. So here we have demos. Over on the other side of the house, a more permissioned user might see our Precipio Consulting space. They might see another one for Patrick Lane Photography. They might see another one for Brothers Lane, our parent company. So all of these different things have their own spaces. And then internal projects, like we have a couple add-ons that we've created. So each of those have their own space. And we keep all the documentation around those things in those spaces. So if we're managing a project, a lot of times a Jira project will have a linked Confluence space. It can be a one-to-one or a one-to-many. You can really do it either way. And again, it just kind of depends on what you're trying to track. One of the potential challenges with Confluence is that because it's a free-form way of organizing and creating content, you have to kind of come up with the way you want to organize your content and stick to that. You have a lot of freedom with how you actually organize things, but if you don't organize them, then you run the risk of things getting out of control. So if you just think about it a little bit ahead of time, it's not really that big of a deal, but it's just one of those things to keep in mind. We also have our people directory. So again, these are all the different users that are in the system. So you can go in there and you can follow them and you can become part of their network. And then again, because we're using team calendars, we also have a calendars link. These are the different calendars that are available to us that we can subscribe to, or we create our own calendars. Things like public US holidays, these are just a generic list of dates. Pepe's assignments, these are Christopher Pepe's assignments that are coming out of issues from Jira itself. So it takes the due dates on the tickets in Jira and uses that to create a calendar. And similarly, that's what these other ones are doing. And then you can have a personal calendar as well. And then you can create calendars and aggregate them all together. And you can look at a whole team calendar based on a bunch of different people and Jira tasks and all of those things. Team calendars is a really nice, useful add-on. Again, if you have questions about it, we can go over at the end, or if we have time, we can look at more. New in Jira 5 is the Create Content button has been moved up to the top, so it's always going to be available to you. And whenever you want to create a new page or blog post or anything like that, you'll just click on the Create button. You'll also notice that the tooltip that pops up tells me in parentheses the little letter C, and what that's telling me is the keyboard shortcut to create content is the letter C. So if I press C, that will pull up the Create Content dialog just like clicking on the button. There's a whole host of keyboard shortcuts for getting around Confluence. If you do a question mark, so shift question mark, that will pull up all the different keyboard shortcuts that are available to you. and walk you through all of them. The documentation is also available online on Atlassian's website. So if you are a kind of keyboard-centric person, a lot of developers tend to be, and they don't really like to use their mouse, you can navigate around the application very quickly. You can insert a lot of content into pages and do a number of other things just with keyboard shortcuts. And if that's something that you're comfortable with, it's a very quick way of interacting with the application. There's nothing that you can't do just by clicking on buttons, so it's not like you're losing anything if you don't use the keyboard shortcuts, but they often make things a little bit faster. So when we go to create content, this is the kind of first hint that we get at blueprints. The most generic thing is going to be a blank page. When you start with just a blank page, you'll get nothing, and you can do whatever you want with it. If you previously had a Confluence instance and you are upgrading, all of your old templates will still exist, and they will show up in here as well as something that you can choose to create a new page from. And then all of the blueprint stuff will show up as well. So one of the examples of that is the meeting notes, and then file list and product requirements. These are 3 of the blueprints that are now shipped with Confluence. And there's a number of other blueprints that are available in the marketplace, some written by Atlassian, some by other expert groups like us. So there's a whole host of other kind of best practices that you can get as blueprints. So if we start off with a meeting notes, let me go and create that. It's going to tell us a little bit about it. Okay, you can crowdsource your agenda and capture meeting minutes and create and assign tasks. We can show this or not show this again next time. So by clicking next, it's going to create this page for me. So if we had a blank page, it would have looked a little like that. But because we started off with a blueprints page, it has all this content in here for us. It had a different date format, but you get the idea. So it's going to come in. It's going to tell us what the day is. It's May 1st. It's going to automatically put that in. It's going to add a attendees list of goals, discussion items, and action items. And this is actually showing off a lot of the features of the editor as well, and kind of a lot of the niceties of the Confluence editor over a lot of other wiki editors. So you can see here under attendees, it's telling us what to actually do. We can @mention people. So Twitter-style mentions are supported in most of the Atlassian applications now. So by typing @, it knows that I want to look up a person. As I start typing that person's name, it's going to give me a list of people that match what I've typed so far. So Christian is here. And you can do it by first name, last name, username, however you want. It'll look up people based on that. So now I've created an attendee list, and this is actually linked to the real users within Confluence itself. We can set goals. We can add in discussion items, set an agenda. Again, it's giving us hints as to what type of content should go in each one of these things, and it's going to auto-format it for us. And then we have our action items. So again, I can mention people. And now I can go and save this page. Now in doing that, that actually created an action item for me. So here I've got my action items menu. Let me edit this page and just show you one neat thing about this is that this is actually just a bulleted list type. So here we have bulleted lists, numbered lists, and task lists. So that's kind of a really cool thing that we can create a bunch of tasks and it acts just like a bulleted list. Then hitting enter twice, that'll stop the action item list. So now I've just created an action item for Christian as well. So up in his task list, he will get a task notifying him to do something. You can see I already created this page ahead of time just to make sure everything was going to work, so I actually have that task twice. But I can tick this off in here, or I can take it off over here, and either way it'll update the other one. So I update this page, hopefully we'll see that get ticked off. So there we go. Now my training has, my task has been completed, and I can check that off, and we can track those in a number of different ways. So Blueprint is taking the kind of best practice meeting note template and putting that together for you and giving you hints along the way of how to actually format that page. It does a lot of other things as well, and I've conveniently forgotten most of them. But Blueprints will be an exciting new thing that grows in the Confluence 5 series. Let's go back over to our demo space. So now that I've clicked over to that, we're looking at this space's homepage, and by default, it's going to have this content here, recently updated, so all the stuff that's been recently updated, and then some navigation tools. So here we have a navigation tree. We can see we have a little page family growing here, and we have kind of a search box that we can use. I've got a couple of different other examples set up for us to take a look at. Rich content and integration with other systems. So this first one is API documentation. So if you're using Confluence as a documentation tool for your software development project, you can create really nice docs with it. This is a REST API documentation, and it's done in the same style as Atlassian's REST API documentation. So if you go to their developer network and you look at their REST API docs, this is more or less what they look like. But just as an example, so we have our headings are actually the REST endpoints themselves, and we've got the endpoint, and then we have optional parameters that can be passed in as well. Does it support gets and posts and all of those things, examples of how to use it. So this is showing off kind of a lot of the other rich content features of Confluence as well. It's not terribly interesting that we can change colors, but we can change colors to make content pop out more in our headings. This is an information bubble, so this stands out. It's got some nice CSS that kind of makes it a little prettier and makes it jump out from the rest of the text. So we have info, and we have notes, and we have warnings, and they have different colors to kind of connote different levels of gotchas. So you can have set notes that pop out of your documentation. These are code blocks, so depending on whatever level or whatever language of code you're using, it will automatically highlight syntax for you. This is just a simple table, and you can see you can sort tables in line. We have a heading, so it stands out a little more, and then all the different rows themselves. I don't think there's too much else that's too interesting in there. Two more of the social features are the ability to comment and like pages. So just like on Facebook, you can like things. People can come in and like pages, and that ups their popularity. That puts them a little higher up in that popular sorting list, and makes them kind of bubble up to the top of some of the searching tools. So the more liked a page is, the higher up it's going to show. This Jira linked project, this is actually an example of more or less the way that we run our client-facing projects. And this is one of my kind of favorite integrations with Jira. I think it's a really good use of both of the tools. So we have some project that we're actually doing, and we're tracking all of the, we're doing kind of the project management itself within Confluence, and we're tracking high-level ideas, and we're building out stories, and anything that needs to be really verbose and has a lot of collaborative nature to it. We track all of that. We develop all of that within Confluence. Maybe we have some passwords that are associated with it, so we store it in this little encrypted block. There's a YouTube video that goes along with it. There's a really cool way that we embed YouTube videos into pages, and we'll look at that when we go create a page kind of from scratch. Here we have a ticket in Jira, and we're basically just using this as a token to track the progress of this project. So this project has its own life cycle. You know, someone comes up with the idea, it gets approved for development, we start developing on it, it goes through QA, it goes through user acceptance testing, we push it out to production. it's got this life cycle that it goes through. So we use this Jira ticket to track that life cycle and track some of the other metrics around the ticket itself. And then we can report off of that stuff later as well. We can even embed those reports back into Confluence. So here we have our top level project page. And here we're tracking all the issues that are associated with this project. And this is just a JQL query, which is returning a result set. So here we get a little kind of mini issue navigator view embedded into Confluence, and we can keep an eye on what are all the active issues. And then these can be really any arbitrary tickets in the system. They don't have to be subtasks off of this or any other thing. So it gives us a little bit more freedom in defining our project and how we want to actually track those items. These are on one project, but we could have help desk tickets and development issues and bugs and all sorts of other things mixed in here as well. We have comment threads. Within comment threads, I think you can actually disable the ability to reply to and have multi-levels. But with comment threads, you can have comments, have people reply to them, and have it go down to kind of an n-level depth. In that way, it operates a lot like forums kind of operated, and we actually have a group within our company that uses Confluence almost exclusively as a forum. They'll create a blog post, and then they start a comment thread underneath that to discuss the idea, hash it out, and figure out what they're going to do about it. And for that team, it works really well. I wanted to talk a little bit about families, and I think all right, this page doesn't. We'll just create a family. So here we have a different project page, more or less the same general idea. We've got our tickets in Jira, we've got our calendar over here, maybe some other things. But the thing I want to do is create a page. By creating a blank page starting here, it'll automatically become the child of my super cool project. And in doing that, we will build out this page family. One of the ways that we organize information with Confluence, and probably kind of the first approach you should take for organizing information, are these page families. So here we are in the demo space. Off of the home page, we have my super cool project. Underneath that, we're going to do showing off the editor. So all like pages become children of some parent, and then we build this big hierarchy. That makes it easier for us to navigate around and figure out where we can go or where the content we're looking for would live based off of the parent pages and drilling down. So one of the things I mentioned is that it's really easy to take a Jira ticket and link that to a Confluence page. So let's take this ticket. All I need to do is take the URL from this ticket and embed it in this page. Confluence automatically recognizes that as a Jira URL. It knows what Jira is and it knows what to do with the Jira URL. So it automatically embeds it in this little Jira issue macro for me just by pasting the URL in there. We can do similar things with images. We can do things with YouTube videos. So if you take an image, this is us at South by Southwest a few years ago. And I'm just going to copy the image itself and go over into Confluence, and I'm just going to paste. All right, well, I don't see that there, so I'm going to use Control-V. What that's going to do is take that image that I copied into my clipboard. It's going to upload it to this page as an attachment. You can see our attachment count incremented, and then embed it directly into the page for me. This is one of the ways that creating rich content has become a lot easier in Confluence. I do the exact same thing with a YouTube video, and there's a number of other different sites that are supported as well. All you do is you take a URL, paste it into the page. Confluence automatically knows what to do with it, and it formats that for you. All right, so let's look at adding a little bit of structure to this page here. I'm sure you've all used rich text editors before, at the very least, Microsoft Word. So we have a lot of the controls that you're going to be used to seeing. We can set what our text formatting is. So paragraph is going to be what we actually type in. We have all of our different headings, and we have pre-formatted, which is just like a monospace font, and we have quotes. And then there's some other things we can do. I mentioned code and stuff like that. So look at how to add those. So I can pick a heading 1. Excuse me, my issue details. So here's the actual issue itself, and I apologize that I can't type and talk at the same time. One of these days I'll learn that, but I've never been very good at it. One of the other nice things that we can do is that if you used to use the old Confluence editor and you really liked Wiki markup, you can still use it. So h1 dot, that was the old Wiki markup way of noting a heading 1. So again, by typing that, Confluence automatically recognizes that as Wiki markup and automatically formats it for me on the fly. Similarly, you can do tables, and you can do all the other things that you can do that you would use the control ribbon to insert. So for tables, we have this kind of neat, how big do you want your table to be kind of thing. I will usually go something like that. If you see that top column toggling, that's because I'm pushing the shift button. So if I want the top column to be a heading, I can leave that in there. If I want it to just be a bunch of cells, then I can hold the shift key when I click on this to insert it. There are a number of table formatting tools that are now available to me. You'll notice that this control ribbon is kind of popped down. So I can select cells and I can merge them together. I can take merged cells and break them back apart. We can remove columns, we can add columns, same thing with rows, cut and paste, all those things you'd expect to be able to do. We can also highlight rows as well as columns. And there's some other stuff you can do. That's going to cover most of your tabling needs. You can take your rich content and embed that into any cell. You can do embedded tables as well. Let's take that off. So we can embed tables within tables. Whenever we do these little setups, these become kind of ugly messes because we're not actually putting real data in those tables. From the meeting minutes, if you remember, we were using it to track our agenda items, and that's actually a really good use of tables. Bold, italic, underline. I'm not really going to go through all these things because I bet you can imagine what they do, but you can change your font colors. Superscripts, subscripts, strike through, some of those other formatting things that are kind of nice. We already talked about bullets and numbered lists. We can do bullets as wiki markup. Similarly, we can do numbers if we use the pound symbol. There's a lot of other things you can do. By hitting tab, you can indent your bullets and things like that. There's a lot of stuff to know about this editor, and there are videos on YouTube that will show you a lot of the kind of power use cases that we just don't have time to cover today. Formatting, right, center, left, justified, inserting links. This is actually something that I do want to cover. So when we go to insert a link, there's actually a number of different things that we can use to insert links to. And there's a number of different ways that we can do them as well. So we can look within Confluence, things that I've recently looked at, attachments on this page. So depending on what kind of content you want to actually attach, maybe you have a PDF and you want to display it in line. You can do that with links to attachments, or just create a generic link that if someone clicks on it, they can download it. You can do a web link. So we could do like, and insert that. Now we have a web link to the Precipio website. And then here we can use wiki markup to create an advanced link. If we want to link to another page, we would just do it this way. We can change our text as well so it reflects more closely what it is. So here we can insert links. But the main thing there is that you can insert links to other parts of Confluence to out on the internet. And then I want to show you, because we linked to SRV13, we'll save this page. You'll notice that this ticket doesn't have any links in it right now. If I refresh this page, we will notice that we now have an issue link that it's mentioned in the showing off the editor page, the page that we're creating right now. And here we have our link to SRV13. So we have this reciprocal link between Jira and Confluence when we embed a Jira issue into a Confluence page. In addition, it's going to tell us what the summary of that ticket is and where it is in its workflow. So we get a little bit more information about that ticket as well. I got a little long-winded on the editor. There's actually a lot more stuff to show you in there, but I think we're not going to have time for it right now, so maybe we can hit it in the Q&A if there was anything else that you wanted to see. Big takeaways are the editor gives you the control over formatting the page. You can use Wiki markup inline. You can use the control buttons to format your pages. A lot of content you can just paste directly into a page. Similarly, images off your desktop or files off your desktop, you can just drag them into the page space and it'll automatically attach them to that page. So there's a lot of easy ways of interacting with this editor to quickly create rich content within Confluence. It's all version controlled as well. So if we go look at the page history, it'll show us all the different revisions. We only made one revision to that, so it's not going to show us very much on this page. But you have all the different revisions. You can diff them, so you can see what has changed in the different versions of this, who made the changes, when they made them. If they put in notes, you can see what they changed, and you can always roll back to a previous version. If someone goes in and makes a bunch of changes to a page, they end up being wrong, you can just roll back to the previous version or some version back in the past. Excuse me. Other tools we have are the ability to restrict pages. So at the kind of administrative level, we have the ability to say who's allowed to go into this space, who's allowed to create content, things like that. At the page level, this user doesn't have permission to do it, so I'll switch context real quick so that we have a user that does. But we can limit who can view this page and who can edit it. And then those view restrictions are also inherited by the children. So if we go up to our top level page, our super cool project, and we put restrictions on that page, I can say this page is restricted to me, and it is restricted to the demo user. Now viewing is restricted to these two users. If I actually remove this restriction, say it's only restricted to Christopher Pepe, then now when I reload this page, I shouldn't be able to see it. I don't have permission to view it. So even though I put that restriction on the parent page of this, my super cool project, this child showing off the editor inherited those view restrictions, and now I don't have permission to see it anymore. So that's another reason to use page families, is it's easy to control those permissions. One of the main use cases for using viewing, especially restrictions, is to be able to set up all of your documentation and get it into the state that you want it to be in before you allow people to start looking at it and viewing it. So by removing that view restriction, people can't get into that page family and look around until you're ready to release it. There's a really good add-on called Ad Hoc Workflows, which actually gives you that workflow without needing to use restrictions. So you can have kind of an approved version of the page and a draft version of it. There's another add-on called Zen, which allows you to really reskin and really rebrand Confluence very radically, and it also gives you that functionality of having draft and published versions of pages. So in creating this and showing off the editor, you can see we actually made a relatively ugly page. This isn't a particularly good page. It's not particularly useful information to look at. I just wanted to show you a lot of the different features. So some of the things to keep in mind for effective use of Confluence is have well-organized pages. And actually, I even think that the other project page is a better example of that. So use the different formatting features within Confluence to organize your data. This is using one of the page templates, which are over here. So we have different page layouts that we can use. And this one is a header, footer, and 2 columns in the middle. So use that to lay things out. this Jira issues macro looks best if it can be full screen. So I put it in where the footer would really go, just so I could have it be full screen. And then this stuff I put it into 2 columns, so it's side by side, so my page doesn't grow to be too long. Atlassian's website is a really good place to look for examples of what well-formatted pages look like. Their technical writers do an excellent job of using space effectively within Confluence. So having the documentation is one thing, but having it visually organized so it's easy to read and easy to look at and easy to understand what you're seeing is another really important part of it. Again, blueprints are going to help you with that. Page layouts and other advanced editor features within Confluence are going to help you organize all of those things. Organize your pages into page families so that like things are linked together. Here we have, we don't have any children off of this. Off of our other page, we made our children. But have a top-level page which encapsulates an idea, and then build your children off of that. Just like in Jira, what you would do is encapsulate an entire user story or some big idea in a ticket, and then have a bunch of subtasks that break that out into smaller, more manageable pieces. Really nice thing about Confluence is that your page families can go to an infinite depth. I'm sure there's a real limit, but you can have as many children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and so on as you want. You can build these very big page families of like things. So largest ideas are organized into spaces. Smaller ideas are organized into page families within a space itself. All these pages that I've touched, by default, I'm going to automatically start watching them. So again, one of our tools is to watch pages. So I mentioned favoriting before. By favoriting a page, it makes it easy to find. By watching a page, I will get email notifications. So now if Christian went in and modified this page or commented on it or something like that, I'd get an email notification telling me this page has been updated. Similarly, you can use Twitter-style mentions. So just like we use them for tasks, you can use them to mention people. So by mentioning Christian either in a comment or in the page itself, it's going to send him an email with a link back to this page and say, hey, come participate in this. If he comes back and he comments on the page or he edits it or modifies it in some way, that's going to add him to the watch list, and he's going to start watching this page and he'll get notifications as well. You can also use his Confluence dashboard to get the notifications on pages he's watching as well as pages he's favoriting. Other ways of tracking information, we have this share button. So again, I made a comment. One of the things you may consider, depending on what your documentation is that every time you make a comment on a page, that's going to persist more or less forever. Technically, you can give yourself permission to delete them, but comments are going to kind of stick around forever. So maybe you don't want to have kind of a finalized API documentation document that has 1,000 comments in this long comment thread that you had while you were creating it. So using the share button is a good way of giving people your thoughts. So again, I can send this to Christian. That will send him an email, but it's not going to modify this page in any way. That gives me the advantage if I don't get this long comment thread, but it gives me the disadvantage of now that collaboration that we were doing is lost because it's actually living in our email. It's living in our inbox. Now we're having this conversation via email as opposed to in Confluence. So depending on what your collaboration is, sometimes it's better to talk directly within Confluence so that you can track all that information and you don't lose it. And here we can see that Christian just went back and commented on this page, and I got a notification in my work box up here. The page title incremented to show me that happened, and my pocket buzzed because my phone got an email. So we have all these different ways that I know something changed on this page, and now I can come back in, I can take a look at the comment that he made, and I can make updates based on that. I'm just about to the end of my demo time here. There are a lot of other things to show you in here. Hopefully you have some questions so we can dive a little deeper into some of the things that you care about. But especially the newest versions of Confluence, it makes it very quick, very easy to create rich content, even for very non-technical users. So it's an excellent collaboration tool, and I encourage you to give it a try. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, or if you want any help or anything like that. I'd love to show you some more tips and tricks.
All right, Chris, let's go over to questions. So we got a couple.
Okay.
Excuse me. So one of the questions comes from Eric. What integrations are there between Greenhopper and Confluence?
That's a good question. Actually, one of the things that I would love to see and just hasn't been done yet is the ability to embed a rapid board directly into Confluence. You can kind of do it, but you can't do it exactly. So there is a, all right, well, let me back up then. So really what you can do is you can take any gadget that exists in Jira and you can embed that into Confluence. And let's see if we can work through that really quickly with dummy data. I do have this set up somewhere, but I can't show you that one, but hopefully this one is good enough. All right, excellent. So you can take your rapid board, and what you can do is, actually, I think I already have it in Confluence. So let's try to add a rapid board to this page and see if we can do that. I didn't show you any of the macro stuff, and I apologize for that. There's a lot of really rich integration in there. All right, so the Greenhopper wallboard gadget, I took this and I added it into Confluence as an external macro. You have to be an administrator to do that, but you just take the, if you go to the gadget browser within Jira, and wait for it to pop up, and it always takes forever whenever you're doing a live demo. You have this little link right here underneath the name of it, and this actually points to the XML descriptor for that gadget. So if you copy that URL and you go and add it as an external macro within Confluence, then you can embed those Jira gadgets within Confluence pages. That's what I did with this Greenhopper wallboard gadget. Okay. That's not to be 100%. Okay. And we will use this one, I guess. Okay. Great. This is good enough to at least show it off. All right, so now I've taken the Greenhopper wallboard gadget and inserted that into this page. And now what we have is a representation of that rapid board within our Confluence page. So we do have links to the tickets. We can click over to Jira and operate on these tickets. We don't have the drag and drop interface. We don't have any of the rapid board features that we would have within Jira, but we have the ability to display boards. We actually use this for our internal development projects to expose to other groups what we're actually working on, what's in flight, what's in the backlog, that kind of stuff. The other drawback is that if you're using Scrum boards, you can't show the planning board. You can only show the work board. So what we do is we use the work board to show actually what's in flight in the current sprint, where the current sprint is, and then we use the this Jira issues macro to show what's in the backlog, and we order it by rank so that people can see what's in the backlog and what's going to show up in the next sprints.
Great, thanks, Chris. The next question comes from Caroline. Let's see here. Okay, so I just tested the task list on my Confluence install. I noticed I could add notes to the task from my task list. Where do these go? I don't see them on the original page where I placed the task list, and it doesn't seem to have shown up in the emails.
So you're adding them through the, maybe you can help me through this, Christian, or we
Sure.
can get, you're adding your tasks through the task list here?
It sounds like that would be it. Yes.
Okay. Well, all my tasks are done, I guess. So if you add tasks here, these are personal tasks and they only show up here. So this will be a personal task that's only going to show up in my personal task list. It's only going to be here. If we add them to a page, so if I add a task for myself here, that's this one. Come on, there we go. So if I add a task to a page itself, it'll stay on this page, and it will show up in my task list. It's going to take a minute for it to actually pop up here, but it'll eventually pop up here. If I add tasks directly through here, they're going to be personal tasks, and they'll only show up here. So I would work them here. Once I was done with this, I would come and check it off here. And I can put in notes and things like that for personal tasks. Let me just reload this page. Hopefully this task has popped up by now. If not, I'll just look foolish. So this should, oh no, I assigned it to the wrong person. I'm demo user, I forgot about that. So this showed up in Christopher Pepe's task list.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
But there you go. That's the quick explanation.
All right, let's move on to this next question by Charles. Can you review assigning tasks to users while on a specific page? I think it's kind of what we talked about here for the most part.
So can you review the tasks that are assigned to a specific user, like to see what tasks someone else has?
Yeah, so I think it's just set up a list of tasks within a page to different people. I think we kind of covered that.
Okay, yeah. Yep.
Okay. Let's see, a question here by John. If I wanted to add a nav bar up on top, can I?
You can. This is a challenge that we've gone through with a number of clients a number of times, and we've solved it a number of different ways. So there's another add-on called Theme Builder, and that has a nice menu building tool, and you can do these multi-level embedded menus. Depending on how you have Confluence set up, it might interfere, it might not, but that's a really good way. Theme Builder is a good way to do it. We have done just custom JavaScript and CSS. So in the administrative section of Confluence, you can embed custom HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and so on, and that gets embedded into all the pages. So we've done custom menus that way as well, and they kind of pop up right here was where we put it. You can put it wherever you want. We've done it that way. The newest way, and really kind of the supported way going forward, would be to use this tool right here. You can add whatever links you wanted into here. It's only going to be a single level. You're not going to be able to go to multiple levels, but you would add them in here. There's also another add-on for Confluence, and I forget the name of it, but it's something like the Universal Menu tool, something like that, that will allow you to create advanced menus and embed them into Confluence as well. There's kind of a number of different ways you can do it. All of them have pros and cons.
Cool. Question from Peter. Is there any way to force the use of threaded comments in Confluence in lieu of the unthreaded comments in Jira?
I wouldn't say you can't force it necessarily, because as a commenter in here, Christian replied back to demo user here. He could have just as easily written a comment, and it wouldn't have been a threaded conversation then. But because we have threaded conversations enabled, users can always reply directly to the person that they're responding to, and you can see it will go to an n-level depth. So we can't necessarily force people to do it, because I could start a new idea here, back at the base level. But the ability to reply down to n levels is available to users. In that way, it operates very much like a forum. So right. You will have this kind of forum-y challenges as well, but you can have multiple conversations going as well because of that.
Okay, cool. Another question from John. Can we do quick links in 5.x?
You can. I don't think we have any set up other than the default ones, but yeah, it's still supported.
Okay. Question from Teresa. With the blog post create option, can we hook that up to our actual blog and publish to that?
The way that it actually works, so we were going to create a blog post. It's going to create a blog post within Confluence, and it ends up just becoming basically a specialized page. It goes to a special place, but the blogging engine itself is built into Confluence. And in order to have this be exposed to the public, you would need to expose this blog to the public. It's not going to allow you to publish to like WordPress or something like that.
Okay. Another question from Aiden. Let's see, you showed off some plugins and you mentioned team calendars. Can you show us more on that secure content block?
Sure. That's actually oops, I closed it. So in full disclosure, the secure content block is actually one that we wrote. We wrote it to solve an internal need, and we just mentioned it to a lot of people, and people seemed to really like it, so we packaged it up and put it out in the marketplace. So if you go to the Atlassian marketplace, you can actually find it now. My favorite way of inserting macros is to just do a curly bracket, because I like the keyboard shortcuts. You can also go to insert. Got all the top level ones here. Just a really quick aside, I wanted to mention the Wiki markup. If you still take notes in Wiki markup or do anything else like that, you can use this Wiki markup macro to insert Wiki markup directly into a page, and it'll take it and format it into Wiki markup for you. So the secure content block, you just give it a title. I'll actually sanitize the key for you. The unique key is going to be the thing that points at that secure content block itself. And then you use your Confluence password to open a block up. You can put in whatever you want for your content. And update it. When you update it, what's actually happening is it gets taken, the content of this block gets taken, encrypted, and stored into an active object in the Confluence database. So it's stored in an encrypted format, so you can't just take that information and decrypt it. As the person who created it, I always have access to this content block. Then we can give the ability to edit this content block or just read it to other groups. So I can say, like, all of our Jira users are allowed to read it. Our Jira administrators are allowed to edit it. We can add as many groups as we want. So now if I belong to the Jira administrators group, when I decrypt this block with my personal Confluence password, when I come to this page, then I can edit the content that's in it. If I'm just a Jira user and I'm not an administrator, I can still decrypt this block and see what's inside it. I just can't modify it. And we just do that because we do a lot of managed services for people, and we have a lot of other use cases where we have passwords and other sensitive information, like banking information, that we need to share with multiple people, but we didn't want to put it into Confluence in clear text, and we didn't want it in our database in clear text.
Awesome. Very cool. So that's the last question we actually have. So we'd like to close this out. Remember, the next webinar is a Jira for resource management and portfolio management. I think we've got that planned for June 5th or 6th. Also, thanks very much for attending. We're going to share a link to the recording here in the next few days. Please share that with your colleagues. Also, if you have any questions, you can hit us up at contact@precipio.com. You can also find us on Twitter. And we look forward to the June 5th webinar, Jira for resource and portfolio management. Thanks so much. Take care.